sipping, I'm 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 sipping. Sipping, I'm 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 sipping.
This is SippinWitSammie. I am SippinWitSammie, Sammie along Barstool group, and we live at the B.PHL Innovation Fest, Center City, Philadelphia. Right now, we're in 1901 Market Street, checking out the conferences. It's a 3-day event, and I went to a couple things today. So it's Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We just gonna give y'all a couple looks at what's going on, man. See what y'all miss. Get some innovation on in your life. It's electric.
I know, like, my wife hosts a podcast. It's called The Longest Shortest Time. It's about parenting. And people, I think, have this really intimate relationship with her, and you know, that kind of intimate relationship that people can get with podcast hosts. If people have the chance to meet them and see them in a live event, it's big. I know she's had a couple of successful events that way.
That's great. So it's in the family.
Yeah.
See one in the back, so please go ahead.
I've been wanting to talk for so long. Okay, so, I think one of the challenges I'm having with this conversation right now is that it's being put into a framework of traditional media. And I find podcasting and a lot of these different platforms that we can now self-publish on to be disruptive technology. So when we're talking about, we went across the room and we talked about, does it make sense to put people in the same room? Yes, when you're building tribe. So the reason why people come into the same room is to connect with their tribe, not to listen to you speak. It's to be around people who are like each other. So I think that the future, and as it goes to scale, it'll go to scale in tribes. And so when I think about when I listen to you talk, it actually hurts me. Because you're talking about scalability, you're talking about these really big podcasts, which are great, and like Serial does goes across different tribes, right? But the future isn't Serial. The future are these niche podcasts, like Kevin. Kevin, I think you were hitting the nail on the head more than anything I've heard today. And I want to know how you guys, who have worked in this space in traditional media, because it's scary to me that it's almost like locking it into this old format. How are you rethinking? Because I think you guys need to disrupt the industry just as much as us as content creators need to disrupt the industry.
I mean, I'll take a crack at responding. I certainly didn't mean to hurt you on with my comments. Listen, I think audio content is tribal. I mean, listen, right across the hall there, WIP broadcasts, so we'll be broadcasting from here. WIP, I've never seen a stronger tribe than Eagles fans in my life. I moved to Philly recently. KYW is a brand here in Philly that is very communal, built around the city. Crooked Media, Pod Save America, is the Democrat tribe, no doubt. So tribes at scale is the way I think about it. I mean, content typically is about a passion point. It's about people identifying with each other. John, it sounds like your wife's building a tribe around parenting and that concept. Some podcasts are built around different identities or different passion points. But I don't think it's incongruous with what you're saying. I think when we build radio stations, typically they're built around some kind of what I would consider tribal or communal interest and scaling that. So that's my kind of response. I don't know, Spencer or Jonathan.
Well, I was going to quickly say that, so when we talk about bringing in somebody like P&G, though, like a huge scale, I think the idea is to not be so putting a blanket over everybody and making everybody kind of fit in this bucket. And the same, conversely, everybody's not going into podcasting for advertising dollars. Some people are going into podcasting to build more people to buy into their subscription site, where they're earning dollars that way, or to literally build traffic. Like, there's so many reasons why people go into podcasting. It's not just to earn advertising dollars. And that's when I said we need to disrupt. We need to change the way we think about things. That's what I think.
Sure.
Yeah, so if I may, I would add, so like Spencer said before, it's not mutually exclusive, and having spent a year and a half building out that tribe, right, and figuring out how it all works, I still got to pay my mortgage. And for smaller audiences, it's harder to do that. And so from my perspective is, yes, absolutely. I mean, when I consult for podcasting, the advice that I give is don't think of yourself as making a podcast, think of yourself as building a community. And that audio is one method to deliver the content that you're going to deliver and engage with that community. However, if these big shows that are sponsored by Procter & Gamble and that are like featuring Conan O'Brien and these huge names, those are the gateway for people who maybe don't know to look for local shows, don't know to find their tribe via podcasts, to do so later. So they start, I mean, my first show was Tim Ferriss' show that I listened to, and then How I Built This, and these are huge national shows with, like I said before, Nissan advertising. But then from there, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is an amazing medium, how can I go find my tribe, and then boom, you know, I can find it there. So I think it's all one part of one giant ecosystem. I don't think that it's one or the other, and I think that without the big money, I mean, most smaller podcasts, a lot of them fizzle out after a year because it's very, very hard to figure out how to make it profitable, because you can only go off of passion for so long. So I mean, that's the way I look at it. I think they're kind of, it's one part of the system, and you kind of need both sides. But I agree with you.
We have time for one more question if there is any. Anyone else?
So I kind of want to explore further content development. You know, what's your thought process? What are the pitfalls? How do you know you're being successful? Really getting to that point where you can regularly put out content that people love.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Kevin, you talked about like asking just why audio? Why is it that you want to make this, whatever it is that you're making as a podcast? And if anybody is interested, there's a new book that a friend of mine just put out. It's called So You Want to Make a Podcast by this woman named Kristen Meisner. That it's Meizner, and it just like walks through all of the steps. And I think that like, because often people are skipping this step and asking the first like, well, what do I do? Like, what microphones do I use, and then how do I make money? Is like a question. And thinking about like really what it is you want to do and why you want to do it as audio is super important.
Malone! Hands up! Hands up! This a heads up, I came to get my bread up. I ain't deviating for shit, homie, I'm fed up. I ain't flipped out in the bit, kept my head up. Nose clean, toes down, businessmen become foes now. Shark Tank, doggy.
The large growers who sell to the public with rigorous testing. But because of those barriers to entry, we wanted to make sure that we also had mid-level and micro licenses so that people who wanted to get into the space but couldn't afford the rigorous testing or a large-scale license to be able to get engaged and involved. We also looked at, for folks who just want to grow for personal use, having a home grow component. So the bill allows for people who are growing 6 plants or less to do home grow. And additionally, because of the social inequities that have existed in the way cannabis laws have been enforced. As many people know, cannabis use amongst demographics, whether white, black, Latino, Asian, are relatively constant. But black and brown communities are 4 to 5 times more likely in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to be subject to law enforcement, and 6 times more likely nationally. So Senate Bill 350 would seal all records of everyone who's ever had a cannabis conviction in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania immediately upon adoption. It also leaves space for creative innovation in the industry because you have micro-grow licenses, so people can come up with a unique strain or something but can't afford a big business. They'd be able to do that because we provide for some level of flexibility. Other issues that we're working with for related topics to this thing, I am a proponent of making sure that we get the right regulatory framework for the hemp industry, and was a proponent for Pennsylvania's hemp bill, which is now law. We have a bill to decriminalize marijuana, which wouldn't be necessary if we were to pass our legalization bill. But to the extent that some of my colleagues want to put their toe in the water first on it would decriminalize it. Right now, in some jurisdictions, people are still being criminalized, subject to felonies, and in some other places, it's a summary offense. So we're looking at things like driver's licenses, and making sure we have proper testing, so that if you're a medical marijuana patient, you're not prohibited from driving a vehicle. And so there are a number of bills we're advancing that are innovating in the space, and I imagine we'll get to that later on. The other thing we've helped work with another one of our panelists, Ms. Ivy, on putting together the Diasporic Alliance for Cannabis Opportunities Conference, and I'm sure she'll talk more about that.
Hi everybody, my name is Desiree Ivy. I'm the co-founder of the Nestle Enjoyment Wellness Institute, and pretty much we focus on healthcare and wellness as it pertains to cannabis. So We have a doctor on staff that does certifications. We have a pediatrician that is able to certify and sit with parents with children who have autism and epilepsy and what have you. And then we also have a psychotherapist because mental health and cannabis coincide as well. And so we make sure that we're taking away the stigma as it relates to cannabis as a medicine for those who need it, like myself.
Specifically, regarding my background in the hemp space, one of the bigger, problems there's a couple things. Number one would be bioavailability and kind of how those cannabinoids interact with your body. And there's actually really unique technologies out there that are being developed and pushed across the finish line to increase how fast these cannabinoids onset within your body, as well as how much of those cannabinoids actually absorb and be utilized by your body. So that's a technology that's commonly referred to as nano-emulsion. And we actually are implementing that within our line now, our product line now, to really just increase the absorption rate and how the effectiveness of those cannabinoids are kind of portrayed inside the body. And obviously that's going to be different with every single person. And kind of taking a zoom step out on innovation within hemp specifically, I think one of the biggest problems right now in the industry are the flood of all these farmers and people who are very interested in getting into the industry with a huge lack of knowledge. And what I'm seeing now is a big influx of farmers and grow opportunities, but with a big lack of knowledge behind that. And what we're actually seeing now is a lot of people getting to the point where their crop is actually coming across the finish line for harvest, but then they're not necessarily curing it correctly, or getting it to the point where it's cured so there's no mold and there's no toxins that could potentially hurt the consumer. And one of the really cool innovations within the hemp space that's specifically addressing that issue is actually a flash drying machine. So it actually allows the typical drying process that sometimes is very long, several days most of the time, to being under 2 minutes, which is going to completely prevent mold and other microbes from forming within the cannabis, which is big for extracts, whether that's a tincture or anything in like a vaporizer product or even flour.
So for what Medicinally Jointed has to offer for innovation in the healthcare space is that all of the things that Brandon said as far as like terpenes are concerned and the cannabinoid system in the person's body and how it differs between patients is really important. So we can help create that data and give out that data because we follow our patients on a regular basis. And so we can go back and tell Soothe, hey, this is helping someone with sciatica. And these are the reasons why, or this is not helping someone with whatever we're treating them for. And so innovation for the healthcare field is very important because we need to know what the patients are feeling. We need to know what's the relief that they're getting. And if we can give that to the researchers and to businesses who are creating the medicine, then that helps further our industry.
0.3 THC level. Beyond that, under Pennsylvania law, it would be considered marijuana, although most marijuana growers would want something a lot more potent than 0.4. But so we just draw a bright line. Hemp and cannabis are related plants. They are capable of cross-pollination. So a marijuana plant has a lot more THC. Hemp plant has basically the same other principles. The two active drugs for consumption are THC, which is psychoactive, and that creates the euphoric effect, and CBD, which is an anti-inflammatory. There are some illnesses for which the two things work together, and there's some that some can be treated primarily with CBD. Hemp is federally legal. It was legalized under the Farm Bill. Cannabis is not. And there are many of the tests that we rudimentary use test for the presence of cannabinoids, and people will say you have a quote-unquote hot urine, even if you've only used hemp, because of the fact that we need to do some things around how we do testing, even though hemp cannot get you high. And so right now in Pennsylvania, cannabis is legal if you have a medical card. And there are, I think, 31 now listed illnesses for which you can use cannabis to be treated. You have to get a doctor's prescription, and you cannot use insurance payments because that it's federally illegal to pay for your medical marijuana. Hemp, on the other hand, you can buy in a corner store almost everywhere in Pennsylvania, and it is regulated as an agricultural crop.
Most companies offer, an isolate, which would be just a CBD molecule extracted from the plant, versus a broad spectrum product where they actually extract the THC out, or a full spectrum, meaning it actually does have the trace elements of THC as well as CBD and the other cannabinoids and terpenes. So, in my opinion, I compare, the CBD movement much like the vitamin C movement. You want to supplement vitamin C, or do you want to eat the whole orange? It's like there's got to be an element of holism that comes along with this movement, and not just reductionism, because that just follows suit to the pharmaceutical model. And I think we need to reconnect back to our natural roots with this plant. I think it has the ability to do that if we do it right. But I've already seen it kind of be exploited, very industrialized. You're seeing Wall Street and everyone coming in and playing this game, and unfortunately the integrity of the plant is sacrificed. So just be mindful of all that stuff, because the more you process something, the more you industrialize it. Technology is great to some degree, and then you complicate and you confuse the consumer. So just keeping that in mind when you're purchasing these products, looking at it more like food as opposed to anything else. It shouldn't be mimicking pharmaceuticals. I look at this as a wellness tool. It's a proactive tool. It's not, it is reactive, but we need to focus it more on as a proactive tool instead of such a reactive thing. So it is medicine, it is wellness, and really understand what you're putting into your body. So buyers beware. It's a crazy world out there, and it's everywhere. But don't be swallowed up by great marketing. I think marketing companies are now acquiring CBD companies, and they're just great at that. So knowing the true source and knowing the farm is key.
Sippin' with Sammie, Sam Malone, Barstool, Rube, with my Trippin' with Sammie, John. Ran into Little Sis, Rhythm HB down at the B.PHL Innovation Fest. Been out Center City, Philadelphia, man. Checking out the sites, about to hit this happy hour and do the most good, because if you sippin' with me, I like sipping for free. For real though. But good event, dope event. We got a couple more days of shit to bring y'all. Catch up with y'all, man. Thanks for following. They know now the Puma nigga with long hair will throw down. Time to go now. Been told y'all, let's talk about it. Tried to settle down, tip. Fuck it, I'm back to drown shit.
Find a way to get content out of the people you interview, because it's not an interview. It's a conversation.
My motivation is different.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to come up off nobody. I'm not trying to do anything more than have the most talented people that I know in positions to win. Because if we all good, we all good.
I appreciate it.
You see what I'm saying? Like, my homegirl picked me up and I was on the way to homecoming. She said, I've been watching these underground hip-hop documentaries. I said, all I can think is, why ain't nobody do one on you? I said, well, I'm going to be in everybody else's documentary. They even wanted to mention me, they consult me in everybody else's documentary. And she was like, you know what? Yeah. Like, it's different, yo.
Yes and no.
I deserve my own, but I'm going to be recorded regardless.
But you have an interesting story to tell.
I do.
That's what drew me to you initially. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the whole, I'm still learning about. Every time we interact, I learn something new. It's because you're appealing. You know what I mean? No, I appreciate that, because it's like, it's always exciting every time I connect. It's always something fresh, something new. I'm with that girl. I think you should come out with some kind of about you. And even if it's not in a documentary, it's just a day in the life, and you're just telling stories as you're doing your everyday shit.
All that stuff is becoming podcast. Because we started the podcast, you was part of the start of the podcast.
I appreciate that.
We got a new camera. We just ordered a backdrop.
Yes.
We got a new computer.
Yes.
We got cameras that got here this week. Like, all this shit is new since you've been on it. That was a couple months ago. Like, it's like,
it's amazing.
My goals is different.
And I just appreciate anybody who don't take. I like people who are. I can't explain it, but I'm like that. You know what I mean? I can relate to your process.
You set up your whole
I can relate to your process.
And creativity. It's a balance.
Right. But then you're constantly finding ways to elevate. Yes. I fuck with that.
It's the reason that I deal with the people that I always deal with. Always, because I need to have people that's really just trying to be better, trying to be more good, because everybody's talented in one way or another. God gave everybody something.
Oh, absolutely.
So even if you could be the best singer on your block, there might be someone on the next block that can say this is good or better than you. But that motherfucker's still on the block. I don't want to talk to her.
Hard work always beats anything.
I need you out here with me.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? Like, and if you can't do it, but if it becomes a thing where I feel like you want to do it, cool. Because there's more shit to be done. People put all their eggs in my basket. I got a fucking 100 baskets.
I'm the type of nigga that's gonna find a way to boil the egg and then break it up into different sections and then put a little bit in every basket. Like, you gotta be innovative, and I think, like, my thing is this: if you have an innovative mind, that's only gonna attract you to more innovative type people, and then you'll be able to create.
Well, that's what happened.
Like, you know what I mean? Something.
That's what happened. My drive led me to other people that had jobs. My personality made it to where I can sustain relationships. You see what I'm saying? So, like, I don't discredit myself. It was me carrying myself how I carried myself that made it possible. But at the same time, me taking myself out of it and saying, I'm gonna just show up. I don't know what's going on, but I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be there. And then
Listen.
you know people, and then it's crazy.
I'm taking a page out of your book. My shy, but I'm not gonna lie. I'm the most extroverted introvert you'll ever meet. You know what I mean? And like, you just like, yo, I'm gonna be here, show up. Be there, show up. Like, sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. But when I can, I really go.
Yeah, because you
have to. You never know what you're gonna experience. Even if that's relative. It's the whole idea of someone is extending an invitation of some sort. You can take that, and then whatever happens, happens. Sometimes amazing things happen, sometimes a connection happens, it's just another night. But if you don't ever just take the chance, then you never know. Like, you know what I
that's
mean?
why I don't resent people when they don't take advantage. Because it's like, at the end of the day, I know what I present, and I know that everybody has a life. So somewhere in between there, you're going to figure out your way based on what I'm trying to help you with, or you're not. Hopefully you figure out on your own. But if I saw something, I always want to be able to say, this is something I think makes sense for you. I can't say this is what you got to do.
That's why you're different.
I can never tell nobody.
That's why you're different. There's this quote that always resonates with me, and I kind of battle with it. When you apply yourself in a way where you're trying to help someone, like if you help people get to where they need to go, it will only help you get to where you need to go. All with good reason. You know what I mean? All with good reason. But it's like one of those things, man, like it just, I don't know how to explain it, man, but it's just the truth. When you put yourself in a business of service, but with good reason, then you never know. Yeah, I can't show up and be like, oh, I want this, I want this, I want that, but then I don't add no value.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like
when I start raising my voice, it's because of the time.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like I deserve to raise my fucking voice because I've done all this. I need somebody to come on.
Yeah, man, I'll fuck with it, man. I'm all about that.
Let's do this over.
Hands up! Hands up!
We are really excited to welcome two cultural Philadelphia icons to the stage. So Questlove, I have to read this list because he does like everything. Is there something he doesn't do? Right? So Questlove, award-winning musician, producer, author, culinary entrepreneur, innovative thought leader, kind of cool, awesome guy. And you have Todd Carmichael, right? So coffee legend, who's been to La Colombe this morning, me twice, right? Can you tell? Entrepreneur, television personality, adventurer, inventor. So you have two really cool Philly legends on the stage today. We're so excited for you guys to see them. And you have a copy of Questlove's new book there in your hand. So to lead our session, I'm going to introduce today's moderator. His name is Ben Greenman. Ben is co-author of the book. He's a longtime editor at The New Yorker. He is also a New York Times best-selling author in fiction and nonfiction. He was his co-collaborator on the book, so he was Questlove's collaborator on the book that you have in your hand, as well as Mo Meta Blues and Creative Quest. So if you haven't gotten those, pick those up. They're amazing. We read those too. He's also collaborated with other notable musicians on their memoirs, including George Clinton of Parliament Funkadelic and Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys. We got some love for Parliament Funkadelic? Yeah? All right, take it. That's funky, yes. So guys, welcome to the stage, Ben Greenman.
I was going to come over the top. Thank you to Michelle and to the festival and to Curtis. Michelle mentioned a little bit about our two guests today, but I want to say a few more words about them. I know the weather is blustery today, so I will try to be less blustery today. We have two people that should be coming out in a minute, and they will be telling you amazing things about creativity, innovation, culture, community, whatever else they happen to be interested in today. Todd Carmichael is the CEO and co-founder of La Colombe, a coffee roaster and retailer that's in several American cities. They also make baseball caps, which you'll see in a minute, because he's wearing one of them. He's been in Philadelphia since the early 90s, and before that, he was a world traveler who went across the globe exploring the origins of coffee. You may have seen a Travel Channel show called Dangerous Grounds, which is based on a similar concept. He's also a non-coffee adventurer. He was the first American to complete a solo trek across Antarctica to the South Pole on foot with no help. So in light of that, today's Q&A should be fairly easy for him. Our second guest today, Questlove, is a Grammy Award-winning drummer, musician, band leader. You may know him from The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, or as the co-founder of The Roots. He's also a New York Times bestselling author whose most recent book, Mixtape Potluck, is either on your laps or underneath you. For today's purposes, he's also a proud Philadelphia native, born and raised, and he started The Roots along with Terry Trotter while they were at Kappa, which is in what direction? Kappa in south. That direction. So please welcome Todd and Questlove.
That is the first idea that I think was genuinely mine, that I didn't absorb from someone else, and it affected me in a profound way. I wasted a lot of time. I still don't have an I would say when I was 15 years old, I didn't have a lot of oversight in my life. My son was suicide, and my mother was sick, and so I know a little bit about the foster system. What that allowed you to do is disappear for a while, and no one would worry. And so I took off for a mountain that I wanted to see up close called Mount Rainier. And when I got there, I realized from the base we couldn't see it. So I befriended some guys, and I ended up over a period of time putting together the gear to climb Mount Rainier. And I did. And from the very top of that mountain, I remember looking towards Seattle, and I realized something very profound. That those people who are pressing their limits, and those people who are achieving, are frauds. And it felt good. I realized I was a fraud. I was doing something that I wasn't meant to do. And I realized that's the way I wanted to live. That I always wanted to be in that space where I looked at myself and said, you don't really belong here, but you like it anyway. So it was becoming a fraud for the first time.
Yikes. I can't top that one. You can't top Mount Rainier, so we'll go back into Philly, I assume.
You mean a creative idea? Or?
You can interpret it anyway. No, it doesn't. I mean, it could be, grilled cheese with the cheese on the outside of the bread. It could be a song, anything.
I think I spoke of this in Meta, my first book. It's so in West Philadelphia, which I recently just found out has been rechristened Walnut Lane. Hashtag gentrification. Walnut Lane, born and raised. It doesn't even roll the table. All right, so I was born in West Philadelphia on the main strip, which is 52nd Street. Osage Avenue, for any natives that are familiar with Osage Avenue and what happened in 1985. Like I grew up 10 blocks away from the Move Fires. So Osage was like right off of Pine Street. Pine Street's assuming that you guys are familiar with the city of Philadelphia. So I think on 52nd and Walnut, there was a mom and pop record store in the 70s. I don't want to be that person that like has to old spleen. Assuming that most of you are not millennials in here.
You mean what a record store is?
No, I did that before to high school, and then I realized I had to explain what records were. So this is like in the mid-70s. There's a record store, and to me, the most fascinating thing about that experience wasn't even going in the record store, was just seeing the display window. And it was like the most creative thing I ever saw. It was like 50 records strategically placed in a way that just, I looked at it like an art piece. And I was like 5 years old. So while most kids are like playing house and playing doctor and all those things, my thing was like play record store. So fortunately, because of my household, I grew up in a place where I grew up with 3 record collectors. So I grew up in like a 2,000, 3,000 plus record collection household. So I would turn my living room into a record store. However, what I didn't know was that they were using J cards. J cards are kind of promotional, foldable, flexible cards that look like records, but are just the posters that you staple on a wall or something like that. So for some of those record displays, you could bend them to fit in corners and whatnot. I didn't know that. So, yeah, so my dad's like Ohio Players collection. Like, I was really, you heard the groans already because you know what I'm about to say. So, I would take my dad's records and also fold crack his records and hope he didn't find out. So yeah, I playing record store, I also destroyed like some of my dad's records doing those folding things. But that to me was like my first creative idea.
Role models and examples really close to home. I mean, for certain things that you do, were those the ones that you started to imitate, or did you also look distantly?
Well, I guess technically, my father was my first role model. My dad was an oldies doo-wop legend of Philadelphia, from like the late 50s to early 60s. And by the time that I was born, that's the first wave of nostalgia culture. Similar to now, like whatever was hidden 20 years ago is, somehow comes back to fashion, because that's sort of like 30 and 40-year-old people's chance to just grasp that one chance of their youth before they get on that sort of escalator to senility. I didn't mean that, I'm sorry. Whole group, it'd be like 13 acts on a show. And, I was like 5 or 6 at the time. And parents really didn't believe in babysitters, so I was a part of the act, either in some capacity. Either I was the family GPS, I was production manager, cut light gels, set monitors and all those things. And so by the time I was 11, I inadvertently became my dad's band leader because of an injury, a motorcycle injury to my dad's regular drummer. And very casual, like, okay, Radio City Music Hall, you drum. So that said, my dad was really like one of those James Brown / maybe Joe Jackson, maybe not really, yes, no, type of drill sergeants when it came to discipline, which I guess that's my style of drumming is what I'm known for. That whole, is it computerized, is it quantized? Did you just sample yourself? Like, is that you for this 7-minute D'Angelo song, or did they just loop you? Like, my dad really built that into me, but mostly like out of fear, because my dad loved nothing more than to kind of do this. which meant that, you know, if I dared try, anytime I wanted to do a fill or a roll of any of his songs, it was kind of like that Thelma and Louise daredevil jump over the cliff, like, am I going to get fined $20 or not for this roll? And so I play the song, all right, are you going to do it? Here it goes. And then sure enough, my dad would be like smooth and be like, yeah, that could be a $30 fine. So, I mean, he just living under that duress. I mean, I don't know if an 8-year-old that has that much stress over his wages. I mean, it depends on like the 10-speed that I wanted for that summer or whatever, but that really kind of set me in motion. I'm pretty easygoing, but I think that the OCD in me when it comes to being a band leader and that disciplinary thing that comes from that. So I guess you could say my dad.
This is SippinWitSammie, Sammie along Barstool Group, and I'm with them folks at the B.PHL Innovation Fest. Sam, what's up?
What's going on? We in the building.
HB, what's good?
Chillin', man. How y'all doing?
We Gucci, man. Running around out here trying to get this information so that we could bring it to y'all, contribute to y'all situations, make shit happen for y'all, and us. Because we ain't all about y'all, we love us too. But do what the fuck you do. And you know what Sammie do, man. SippinWitSammie, tune in every Thursday, 4 p.m. We drop it everywhere. And I'm bringing Soph with me most of the time. And HB as much as possible. So that's what we do.
Let's go.
Malone.
Hands up! Hands up!
This a heads up, I came to get my bread up. I ain't deviating for shit, homie, I'm fed up. I ain't flipped out in the bit, kept my head up. Nose clean, toes down, businessmen become foes now. Shark Tank, dog eat dog, bet they know now. The Puma nigga with long hair will throw down. Time to go now, been told y'all, let's talk about it. Tried to settle down, tip, fuck it, I'm back to drown shit. Heavy talk, so come heavy, you're not around here. And this wherever, fuck where I'm at, I ain't from down here. I'm an angel, I was fumbled from heaven, ain't no how. Your chick bless me, I'm earth's blessing, it's going down. Tired of night stressing about how to get you to listen. Pick a side, ride or die, I'm on a mission. Cousin, I'm a chef, ain't tripping about Hell's Kitchen. I drink like a fish, no ocean too deep to swim in, I'm out here. I was down, you called it winning. Short-sighted motherfucker, this life, my life's different. Plenty nights, them lights shimmered. Upgraded the wheel, treat them lights different. While chiefing tonight's is a
Hands up! Hands up!
We living, cognac, toasting and bitten. Laugh at shit that ain't funny. My happiness ain't money. Nothing short of a box and cage could take it from me. My get back phenomenal, come up astronomical. I'm the one they whisper about and try to outdo. Whole world wanna sip with Sammie, not you. I'm checking for checks. I hated you, not true. My eyes up to the sky. I'm focused above you.
Hands up!